You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello, welcome back to the show. This month's series is focused on motherhood, pregnancy, and mental health. Last week, we kicked it off with Dr. Nicole Rankins, and she shared with us how to prioritize our mental health during pregnancy and delivery. And you know the drill. I followed that up with a solo show about my personal mental health experience during pregnancy, delivery, and a little bit postpartum. Now this week, I'm joined by Kristine McGlinchey. Kristine is a former career-driven millennial who transitioned her leadership skills from fast-paced corporate America to become an author, intuitive mentor, and mom who helps women heal core wounds to conceive the life of their dreams. With the birth of her daughter, a community was born. Om Mamas seeks to bring back the village to motherhood through intentional workshops, conversations, and community. In this community, she helps women heal and reclaim the divine role of motherhood by empowering them to make choices that align with their mind, body, and spirit. In 2020, she released her first book, Mantras for Mindful Moms, available now on Amazon. She is certified in the soul reading method, a women's circle facilitator, hypnobirthing, and a guide in ancestral healing and womb wellness. And if you're wondering what all of that means, don't worry, I ask her to explain everything. We discuss the importance of intentional practice and inner work in the conception process, the role of spirit guides, tarot cards, and the Akashic Records in helping us reach our full potential in motherhood. If you like what you're hearing today on the show, please make sure you sign up to join us on July 31st for a live Zoom panel discussion featuring Kristine and two other experts. Visit sasssays.com/panel to sign up. And in the meantime, here's Kristine. Kristine, so nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I have a lot of questions for you, basically because I read your bio and I looked around your website, and all of the things that you specialize in and have a passion for are things that I could take a stab at what they are, but I really don't know. So I don't know, like this might feel a little like rapid fire at you. I'm sorry, but I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Oh, what does that mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you. So basically, I'm an intuitive teacher, an author, a speaker, an energy healer, and the mother of two. And over the course of the 4 years that I've had my business and it's continued to evolve, right now, I'm really finding that a lot of my clients are women who are having difficulties overcoming really deep wounds and limiting beliefs
Mhm.
around either femininity, because we've been trapped so long in this like toxic pattern of masculinity, and also worthiness,
Mm.
not feeling good enough to either start a business or even start a family. So
Yeah.
everything that I do is really grounded in conceiving the life of your dreams. So whether that's you want to leave your corporate career and become an entrepreneur, or if it's because, you're healing into motherhood and you recognize that something is holding you back.
Mhm. I I've noticed throughout, your social media and other interviews that you've done, the very intentional use of conceiving the life. Tell me
Mhm.
about that. Will you say more about that?
You know what? Oh gosh, through my personal experience, I've really found that it's an intentional practice.
Mm,
Everything throughout my life has been a choice, an intention to, go one way or the other.
mm,
When I got married and I was having a lot of blocks, a lot of resistances to becoming a mother. I was scared. I was terrified. And the conception process, we tend to kind of discount it or downplay it
mm,
because we think, oh, it's going to happen like so quickly, or, conception is just conception. But in order to conceive, it's much like manifestation, right? The thing that we don't talk about with manifestation is that you're trying to become an energetic match for what you want. And in order to be an energetic match for what you want, the things that don't align with that, they have to go somewhere, right? So they have to disappear, they have to die. And
mm,
it's this like really heavy process of death and rebirth. And conception is the same thing. We have to let go of everything that doesn't serve us or align to conceive the life of our dreams, to conceive our children, to conceive our businesses. It's a lot of deep inner work that comes along with it for the women who, of course, feel called to mother in, that way.
mhm. I've never heard manifestation talked about in that way.
Yeah.
I've heard about, of course, energy matching
Mhm.
kind of almost like yes, I won't rephrase what you just said because you said it so beautifully, but,
Yeah.
I've not really, like you said, I've heard about what we need to let go, but not as complex and perhaps as grief-ridden as thinking about it as a death. Like, that is
Mhm.
really on point, and I've not heard that before.
Yeah. Well, if it's anything like probably the last years, 3 years have shown me, but also us collectively, is how much are we willing to trust and surrender
Mhm,
that everything that is changing or transforming and, really alchemizing. It's like the alchemy of life in that death and rebirth process of
mhm,
rebuilding. And that's where I find a lot of what I've been through in my lived experience, but also what my clients kind of mirror back to me in
yeah,
their like deeply transformative seasons of their lives.
yeah, okay. Alright, so I wanna go back for a moment. What what scared you about becoming a mom?
Oh gosh, what didn't? Labor was a huge one, right? Like the physical pain
Mhm,
of childbirth, but also, the emotional and the mental aspects. Was I good enough?
mm,
Was I going to traumatize my child? Was I going to create, like, repeat the same patterns? Was I worthiness, was huge. Was I confident in myself to be a good enough mother?
mm,
And I really found that I energetically blocked myself. Like I didn't make it a possibility for myself to become pregnant or to even receive a baby. And
mm,
that's like a huge thing that has been so illuminating for me working with my clients who have been through several rounds of IVF, who've been
mm,
trying for over 7 years. And when I connect to their spirit baby or when I connect to their energy, I find our energy sometimes we're not even receptive because we've been in that toxic masculine pattern for so long where we're just producing, analyzing in survival mode. And so our physical bodies literally can't even receive. So we have physical manifestations and physical blocks.
mhm,
And there's tons of spiritualists, holistic practitioners, doctors who talk about, how energy creates physical manifestations or barriers, right, within our bodies.
mhm,
And so that was very much my fear of, was I worthy enough? Could I really do it? Could I really hold the space? And so it took a lot of healing, inner child healing, but also physical healing. Acupuncture is a great
mhm.
practice for
Love
fertility.
acupuncture.
And I was doing all of these things like intentionally, like my soul knew what I was doing, but
Mm,
consciously I was just being led and called to all of these different practices, all of these different modalities.
mhm,
And and then I realized, like, looking back on it, like, wow, this was my path. This was literally, I was detoxing, doing cleanses. I changed all of my products to
mm,
holistic, like toxic free products, cleaner ingredients. And I was doing this again, like subconsciously, my soul was leading me to all of these things. And that's exactly the practice I walk each of my clients through, of really preparing yourself for motherhood.
mhm.
And, it kind of sounds silly, right? Like, oh, we have to prepare for motherhood. Like, people have been doing this for generations, right? They haven't been doing all of this. We are at such a unique time collectively. And I'm sure like everyone can resonate. Like, there hasn't been a time in history, of course, like this one,
Yeah.
where people are so aware, people are becoming so intuitive, but also the next generation of children is so aware and so intuitive, and rightfully so, because we have a lot of course correcting to do.
Mhm, mhm. So, did you have a spiritual practice before that the catalyst for, "Hey, I think I might wanna be a mom, but I gotta do this healing first?"
Yes, I did. I did. So I would say I was always, I was always very empathetic. I was always very sensitive to energy.
Mm,
But the catalyst really for my deep transformation, like one of the biggest seasons of my rebirth, was when I was 24 years old and my father passed away from cancer.
mm,
It just clicked. It was like one of those moments in your life where you just knew nothing was going to be the same.
mhm,
And so that put me on this like spiral of transformation and healing, of therapy and energy work. And I just was living so out of alignment. I was in a career that I was suffering from depression, anxiety. I was in a really toxic, abusive relationship
mm,
that I was scared to walk away from. I was just living so out of alignment, so disempowered, that moment gave me the courage to step away, being faced with of course, like the reality that, hey, life really is short.
yeah,
And what am I doing? It was
yeah,
kind of like my father gave me that gift of awareness of like, what are you doing? One
mm,
of the last things that he told me, was live life and be happy. Like, it was that simple, right? For him, just live your life and be happy. And I wasn't living my life. I was living someone else's life, and I definitely wasn't happy.
yeah,
So it was that moment that I felt like I took the power back,
yeah,
that I reclaimed myself in those moments. And from then on, it's just been like this beautiful, still hard because we
yeah,
are human, but it's been like, this beautiful path of actualization
yeah.
and service to others.
If you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
your your father's message of live life and be happy, was that a message that you received from him often, or was this like, "Whoa, this is the first time I'm kinda hearing this from him," and you know what I'm saying? Like, 'cause I think
Yeah.
a lot when someone is facing their last moments, things click that haven't clicked, prior in their life, and I'm just curious what that was like for you to hear from him in that moment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I remember the conversation so vividly because I just kind of asked him, because he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, so he had a timeline. He only
Mm,
had 6 months to live, and I wanted to make the best of it. I took him to all of his favorite restaurants. We like had all of his favorite foods, and he was just that type of person.
mm,
He was so at peace
mm,
always. And he really inspired me to live the same way
mm,
because he had no regrets. He just was such an eternal optimist, but he truly embodied it.
mm,
He loved every minute of his life.
mm,
And so I remember asking him, like, what is your advice for me? Like, like, what can I do? Like, what knowledge or wisdom do you want to share with me? And that's what he said. He said, just live life and be happy. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. And it was just so simple to me.
Mhm.
Like, it was such a simple phrase, but the reason why it hit me was because I wasn't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, it's simple," because that's how he lived his life, you
Yeah.
know? He lived his life knowing that any moment it could be gone.
Mhm.
So even when he was diagnosed, it was that bittersweet realization of like, "Okay, it's coming."
Mhm.
But there was no, the normal grief or sadness of like, I don't wanna leave my family behind, but he was just again, he was so at peace with it.
Mhm.
And I think, the more that I do this work and this calling, I've had such a profound experience with grief
Yeah.
in so many different ways. Like the grief of becoming a mother, like from maiden to mother and like all of these seasons. And, I don't want this episode to be completely depressing, like, oh, we're talking about death.
I
But I
asked,
think this
so
is
it's okay.
something, I
Yeah.
think this is something that is missing from the conversation because we
Mhm.
look at ourselves and we're like, why am I so depressed? Why do I miss who I used to be? And,
Yeah.
we try to like bypass the experience.
Yeah.
And when we can sit with it, when we can really feel it, that makes so much of a difference because I have so many clients that come to me and I'm like, in their energy, it's just like, something happens, I avoid it, I keep going. Something
Mhm.
happens, I avoid it. We're not processing. We're
Yeah.
not giving ourselves that time and that space to process and really sit in our feelings and emotions.
Yeah. I think particularly in motherhood, right? The
Mm,
combination of now having another person who's completely dependent on you, just
mhm.
you can barely all of the memes and all of the cliches, you barely have time to shower, let alone feel your feelings. But also the societal pressure of how blessed are you to have this child? And, there's no room for grief of any kind. And there's
Mhm.
no room for, I mean, how about even the fact that it's still a pretty taboo topic to talk about infertility
Mm,
and child loss, infant child loss. I
yeah.
mean, we don't share these things and we don't talk about them and we discourage mothers from talking about them
Mhm.
because everyone else is too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's
yeah.
also that the continued oppression of women expressing themselves, right? Like
Mm,
you're only allowed to express yourself in one way. Like
yeah.
it's kind of like that, you have to be the good girl, right? You
Yeah.
can't make noise, you can't, and I have, and I completely resonate with this too, but we come from a generation of women as well who haven't had the opportunity to express themselves or show emotions or vulnerability.
Yeah.
I personally am, first generation American.
Mm,
My mother is Filipino, she's an immigrant. My dad was second generation American, but there was just no time for emotion. So when I was a child and I was having these really like heavy emotions, she was like, "Nope,
yeah.
stop. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Don't do it." And then so I learned that it's not safe
Mhm.
to process, to express my emotions. So I went through life concealing my emotions, not feeling like it was safe to cry in
Yeah.
public or to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And this is a lot of what happens, right? Like then we mother that way where we're like we feel like we have to be the strong one. We
Mhm.
feel like we have to have it all together all the time.
Yeah.
But that narrative is really changing. I see it in our generation. Our generation really wants to, you know, be the emotional ones, hold space for our children's emotions,
Mhm.
share and process them. I think there's a lot of, strength in saying like, mom's not okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna step away and I'm going to cry
Mhm. Mhm.
in the room, like, "Mommy just needs some time to process." I think there's a lot of strength in that and
Yeah.
resilience that we're able to teach our children of, like, it's okay because as quickly as an emotion comes through, the quicker we let it out, then the faster we move through it.
Yeah. Curious how your mom now reacts to the work you do.
She's very supportive of it. She's
Yeah.
very supportive. Filipinos by nature are pretty spiritual. There's, like, so many
Mhm.
beautiful rituals and spiritual practices in the Philippines, and so she wasn't really at first when I was telling everyone, even my, my mother-in-law or my in-laws, like, look, I'm not going back to work because I left my corporate job. So I was a corporate publicist for over
Mm,
10 years. And when I got pregnant with my daughter, I said, okay, well, I'm not going back to work. I was working like 14-hour days,
mm,
constantly traveling. I was like, I won't be able to be a mother. Like, I'll never see my child. So I told them, look, I'm setting the intention. I'm going to start my own business and I'm not going back to work. And they were like, just wait until you have the baby. Like, don't make any decisions now, whatever. And I said, okay, I had the baby. I was on my maternity leave and they were asking me, when are you going back to work? And I said, I'm not. I'm starting my business. I'm leaving my job and I'm not going back to work. And they were like, are you okay? Like, are you sure? Like, what are you even going to do? How are you going to make money? Because again, going back to that immigrant mentality, right?
yeah,
Like job security,
yeah,
401k, health insurance.
yeah,
Like that's the American dream.
right.
And I was doing something so crazy to them. Like I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs,
Right.
So they just kept asking, when are you going to go back to work? When are you going to go back to work? I said, I'm not. And I didn't.
Yeah.
I started my business. I was consulting for a while and eventually they just stopped asking, and then, eventually they're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, you're paying your bills. You're not
Right.
asking for money. So I'm just going to leave you alone.
Yeah.
And, so then when I started doing the readings, I made the switch and started doing readings. My mom's like, oh, okay. I'm like, I do readings, I do this. And she's like, okay, it's just one of those things. Like she's supportive of, you know,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
but it takes time to
Yeah,
like I also mentor a lot of women who want to start businesses. And that's one of the biggest fears. What is my family going to think?
yeah.
What are my friends going to think? I can't show up like this. Like they're going to think I'm crazy. And I'm like, yeah, everybody thinks I'm crazy too, but hey, it
Take that as a
worked.
good sign.
Yeah, I'm like, everybody thinks I'm nuts also, but hey, it's one of my biggest, like, we're talking about a lot of fears. We're talking about fears and death today, right? Because we transmute it. We transmute fear and death into
Mm,
this beautiful thing. But one of my biggest fears when I was at my corporate job, I was so unfulfilled.
mm,
That's, I was suffering from that depression, that anxiety. I was literally like, I had to hype myself up. Like in the morning, stuck in traffic, I would listen to like positive affirmations, like, okay, you can do this. It was like I was
mhm,
like training myself to be okay with it. And my biggest fear was that I would get to the end of my life and my spirit guides, spirit source, the higher power would look at me and say, you completely missed this
mm,
whole other path.
mhm. Yeah,
You completely missed, your full potential because you settled.
yeah,
And that was also one of my biggest motivations of like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and be told that I just settled.
yeah,
I want to live my highest potential.
yeah. Okay, okay, so what is a spirit guide?
Oh, okay. I love that question. So, spirit guides are ascended souls. So, this is like multifaceted, right? So, reincarnation.
Mhm,
Once we get to the other side, the spirit realm, we are met with kind of like a debriefing, like, "Oh, okay, how was that lifetime for you?" Like, "Oh,
okay,
how did you enjoy that? Like, what did we learn? What do we still need to learn?" And so we have different routes. And all of this is documented as well. There's a ton of really beautiful authors, Journey of Souls, Michael Newton, I believe. There's also, Brian Wise, Many Lives, Many Masters.
mhm,
Huge, groundbreaking book. And these are hypnotherapists, like really famous hypnotherapists who were detailing, they would regress their clients into
okay,
past life experiences. So we go to the other side, we're kind of met with a debrief. And, some of us who have lived many, many lifetimes were given a choice. Do you want to become a spirit guide? Or are you going to like ascend? Are you going to reincarnate? So we have different paths and different options for when we cross over.
okay,
Our spirit guides are basically ascended souls who have been assigned to you in this lifetime, and they have different themes that they help you with. So, for
Okay.
instance, I have a spirit guide who helps me. She's a medicine woman and she's a healer. So she helps me with a lot of my work in healing. I
Mm-hmm.
have another spirit guide. He helps me with business and career specifically. He's here to guide me in entrepreneurship. So when I'm doing readings in the Akashic Records, he'll come with me to the Akashic Records. He'll help me channel. And then I have another spirit guide who is a celestial being. So this is like multifaceted because we
Mm-hmm.
also have like other beings, like the celestial stuff is real.
Mm-hmm.
There's like so many like things. He's a celestial being because I've reincarnated from other planets. So some of us who associate with being a star seed, where we come from literally other planets to help Earth ascend, will have a celestial spirit guide or a council.
Okay.
And our spirit guides are, they're basically our guardians. So we can connect with them and they can give us advice. They can tell us what to do. The most common way that spirit guides will talk to us is through numerology. So when you're seeing like the angel numbers 111,
Mm-hmm.
those are angels, our spirit guides. When people describe, oh, I heard this voice and they told me to do this, like most often that'll be our spirit guides as well. They're always with us. They're always trying to align us to our highest path, our
Okay.
greatest potential. They want nothing but the best for us. And they can be from different decades. Like sometimes I see people's spirit guides, they're from like the 18th century.
Okay.
Some are like really old, evolved, wise souls. And their job is just to protect us, watch over us, and to guide us.
Okay. Okay. I just want to say I recognize how insanely complex this is, and I'm asking you to simplify it in a 30-second to 2-minute answer. So I appreciate that and I acknowledge that. Um, how is okay. What I want to ask about this. So if someone works with you, you could potentially be helping someone identify who their spirit guides are, or these things that someone could identify on their own, or even just hearing you talk about he versus she, like that was interesting. Like
Mm,
how do you know these things?
yeah. Okay. So great question. So, typically for my readings, right? So, I offer intuitive guidance sessions where we can connect to your spirit baby for women who are looking to conceive, but also I do purpose and like motherhood readings.
Okay.
The structure for my readings are prior to our call, I'll sit with the person's energy. And by energy, this is pretty much looking at their chakras.
Okay.
Like
That makes
and
sense.
their
Okay.
energetic body. I also call in their elevated and healed ancestors, and I also call in their spirit guides for any other messages that this person is ready to receive and hear that will help them with whatever question or with whatever issue, that they're feeling stuck or blocked in. And typically I'll see the spirit guide. Like
Mm,
not in like my immediate surrounding, because even though I am a medium, I can connect with ancestors and like, spirit guides and other beings. I don't like having them in my space. So other mediums will actually call in like spirits, like in their room and in their space. I don't like that. I don't like the feeling
okay.
energetically of that. And so it's almost like, in your mind's eye, like I'm in a meditation and then I'm kind of like calling in their energetic body. And then I'm seeing like whatever ancestors or whatever spirit guides are presenting themselves. And if my client would like to know, like, oh, how do they look or how many spirit guides, then of course, yeah, I'll tell them and I'll kind of like channel that.
Okay.
But this is a practice that everyone can do. As much as I like to think that I'm special, I'm really not because we all have this capability. We
Mhm.
really do. And so, a great way, there's a ton of, you could go on YouTube and find, I think Gabby Bernstein has one,
Hmm.
my spiritual mentor, Nikki Novo, she
Hmm.
has a great spirit guide practice, and you just basically sit with them in meditation and, set the intention. Like, I want
Yeah.
to meet my spirit guide. And the way that I started practicing this was through automatic writing. And again, Gabby Bernstein, I think Gabby Bernstein was one of the first people that I learned this from. Oh my gosh, over a decade ago. I don't know if she still has it on her website. I think it's in the book. Is it The Universe Has Got Your Back? It might be in there. But I know she has a book with like a guided meditation and a practice of automatic writing on how you can connect to your spirit guides. And
Okay.
it's going to take a while. It's going to be
Yeah.
a practice, but it will evolve over time. And the benefit of connecting with your spirit guide is because, I always tell my clients, because even when we feel so lonely, there's so many times in our life where we're like, oh my gosh, I just feel so alone. I wish I had someone who can tell me what to do.
Hmm.
Like, I need advice. And our spirit guides will do that. If you sit in meditation with them and you ask, like, literally, should I buy this, or should I not buy this? Should I move? Should I not move? They'll tell you whatever's in the path of your highest alignment. It's just trusting that inner voice, trusting your intuition, and trusting, where you're being led and guided.
Okay. Okay. And I appreciate you saying it will take a while. I think
It
because
does.
so many of my listeners and myself included, like there are days where we're working on meditating for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's you gotta build up to it, right? Like
Mhm.
and I think like you said, I think uh there's a certain level of just openness and readiness, I
Yeah.
think, that comes with time.
Mhm.
I honestly don't have a ton of experience in this realm, but
Mhm.
I did I did the Calm app 30-day meditation like for beginners with
Mhm.
Jeff Warren, and
Mhm.
I've talked about this a lot on the show because it was so impactful because he actually teaches you how to meditate, like beyond
Mm.
just sitting there with your eyes closed, and
Yeah.
he really teaches you how to open and close doors in your mind, and
Yeah.
I think it's so much harder than it is to just hear people talk about because
Yeah.
you gotta sit with yourself, like, it
Mhm.
is challenging.
It is. It really is. When you start a meditation practice, it can be challenging because we're not used to the stillness.
Yeah,
We're used to like the frenzy and
and we
so
want the instant gratification, like,
oh,
we want the answer now.
totally. A really quick way to connect to your spirit guides or, your inner guidance is through oracle cards also.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I have a box of them in my drawer, and I
Yeah,
haven't done it yet.
so quick and easy. You ask a question, shuffle the cards, just set an intention that you're connecting to your highest self, your spirit guides, and it's amazing, like, how
Okay, you're
how that
inspiring me
can.
now to get them out of this drawer
Yeah,
because
yes.
I bought them because I heard I think it was, Marissa Lonick talking about them, that she, will just turn a card over in the morning and see what
Yeah.
shows up, but that, just like a little not that that method I don't think would work or whatever, it just, um, I don't know. It was a little intimidating, actually. You know what
And
I mean?
you know what I'm hearing you say? The trust.
Mm,
And this is a huge part too of being a woman in this time, and also like trusting your intuition, trusting where you're being led, trusting what the card says. It's scary for us because we're not taught to trust ourselves. Society actually doesn't
yeah,
want us to trust ourselves, right? Because it's like, well, you don't know best. Like,
yeah,
there's always an expert for everything.
yeah, yeah.
And I think we're shifting collectively where it's like, no, I'm the expert.
Mm,
And it's interesting to see how that's played out, over the course of the last 3 years, even with like media and, the situations that we've been in.
yeah,
The message that I've heard a lot and have been telling my clients over the last 3 years is self-trust is going to be the biggest form of surrender.
mm,
but also it's an act of self-love.
Yeah.
Like when you can trust yourself, you can love yourself more fully.
Yeah. 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 I think, I just for me, I think there was a level of trust that I had in myself that was severely rocked in motherhood.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, I really thought I knew who I was.
Mhm.
And now I have little humans and a whole new life. And it's like,
Mm.
whoa,
Yeah.
okay. You gotta reevaluate here. Um, the readings that you're talking about, is this the soul reading, or is this, I'm just trying to make sure I covered that fully. Is there anything else about the readings that you wanna share? And oh, I know what I was gonna ask you. The records, the Akashic
Mhm.
records, what are those?
Yeah. So the soul reading method is actually what I'm certified in. And so my
Oh, okay,
spiritual
different.
mentor,
Okay.
yeah, Nikki Novo, oh gosh, she's such an amazing woman, such an amazing resource. So if you want to learn, what I know and what I do, like the foundation or the basics of it, like
Mhm.
anyone feel free to message me and I'll give you more information on that course. She runs it
Okay.
probably about like 2 or 3 times a year, and
Okay.
it's an intuitive certification, basically, and she'll teach you how to do energy readings, she'll teach you about the Akashic Records, and so the Akashic Records is a metaphysical modality. It's a metaphysical consciousness that we can tap into, and the Akashic Records holds everything about our past lives, our present life, and our future possibilities.
Okay.
So think of it as like Google for your soul. Anything that you wanna know, right? Anything that
Okay.
you wanna know about what has Christy been through? Like, what
Mm,
past lives has she lived? Like, what are her, lessons that she's meant to live in this lifetime? And we can use the Akashic Records to have a greater understanding of who we are, but also how we share experiences with people.
mm,
So for mothers, we can go into the Akashic Records and we could pull like soul contracts.
mm,
What are you meant to do? Like what is your role of mother in this lifetime meant to look like? What
mm,
contracts do you have with your children? What are you here to guide them, to teach them?
mm,
What do they want? What are they hoping or wanting from you? We could take a look at, developmentally, what is their purpose? So the Akashic Records most commonly is used for purpose. What is my purpose?
okay.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Go ahead, sorry. Was there more?
um, no, I was just gonna say, specifically for purpose, we have like this huge, overwhelming idea of what our purpose has to be, right?
Mhm.
But the truth is, we have micro purposes. We have a current purpose, which sometimes is like just rest. Like your current purpose is literally to not do anything,
Mhm.
you know? And, our greater purpose sometimes will be like to be like I've had a client whose greater purpose was literally like to enjoy every single moment of your life. And that's how she lived. She was like, okay, that makes sense because people always tell me, like, you shouldn't be doing that. And she's like, I just have this feeling that I'm just supposed to experience everything.
Mm,
She loves to travel. And she's like, I just feel it. Like, I'm meant to just experience everything that this world has to offer. And it literally was in her purpose to do
mm,
that. And we can have a career purpose, which is, the professions that we might find ourselves in, and even a spiritual purpose. Are you meant to become a spiritual teacher or facilitator? Like how evolved is your soul, and what can we do in this lifetime? So there's many facets of our purpose that create a larger picture, but I think sometimes we get overwhelmed when we're like, oh, I hate my job but I don't know what my purpose is,
yeah.
and like we're
Yeah.
trying to find like this really big elusive thing, when sometimes it's just like, well, you're just meant to like do this intuitive certification and see where it takes you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you actually said it earlier, and so I wanna clarify my question by saying I heard you. when you said that this is for someone, all of that we're talking about, this is for someone who wants it, right? You're not here to, change anyone's beliefs or convince
Oh,
anyone
not
otherwise.
at all.
Right. So, someone listening is going, I'd rather just not have all that information. I'd rather just not know.
Mhm.
That is okay. But I want you to perhaps share what are the benefits of knowing? Like, what are we gaining in knowing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you know what I found for me and for my clients, and trust me, I'm not here to indoctrinate anyone. I'm
No,
not here
I
to
know you're not.
preach.
I
I'm
know.
not here
Yeah,
to
I know. I just
yeah.
prefaced it by saying that because
No, of
I
course,
think
because some
there's,
people might feel triggered by it.
yeah, or I just more like, I wanted to preface it by saying that because the question I asked you might sound as if you're trying to convince someone. And I
Right. Yeah,
mainly just want the information. You know what I mean?
totally.
So,
From my lived experience, honestly, I was getting readings, even before my father passed away because I needed insight. I needed to know that I was working toward a greater purpose in my
mhm,
life, that I was on my path.
mhm,
I didn't want to miss out on any opportunities, like I said. So every year I would have a reading with my spiritual mentor, Nikki. And really, the readings are like therapy or coaching sessions. Even in my sessions, I'm like, listen, lady, we got a lot to talk about because I know you know what you should be doing and you're not doing it. And they're always like, yes, I know.
mhm,
So it's really just to have that space of connection, of vulnerability, someone who sees you and who hears you, and you don't have to feel judged because they're like mirroring back like what you know to be true about your soul.
mhm.
I just find it to be empowering.
Yeah,
I do this work. I've had hundreds of like I've held space for hundreds of women around the world. I get a reading and a healing every single month.
mm,
Why I do it is because, again, I want to make sure that I am, really doing the things that will not only help me in my life, but help to be of service to other people.
yeah,
And so for me, the biggest thing when I was, when I am still getting readings, but in the beginning of my spiritual journey, when I was getting readings, it was for that connection to myself, to a higher power, to someone else who was just holding the space for me. And, there's different reasons why people want a reading, right? Because you feel stuck.
yeah,
You're like, oh gosh, I really want to leave this job, but I don't know what to do. Like, I literally don't know what to do.
mm,
I, I'm like confused. I feel overwhelmed.
mhm,
And, when you have a reading, it's like relief, instant release, like, oh my gosh. And permission.
mm,
It's like, I want to leave my job, but am I crazy? Like, am I
mm,
just like, and it's like, no, you're not crazy. You actually are meant to leave your job, but this is how you do it. Because
yeah,
not only is it like, that spiritual space that we're holding, but we're human. So we need the practical advice. Well, okay, you want to leave your job? Here's how you do it.
mhm.
Here's
Okay.
what your spirit guides are telling you. Here's what, is on your path. You have two options, and these are the ways that you can go. And, for my women who are looking to conceive and, are so, gosh, they've like reached their breaking point, right? They're like
Mhm,
on their third round of IVF, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to give up. Like, if there's no baby waiting for me, I'm just going to give up because it's been exhausting. You're putting yourself through so much physically and mentally. And for them, it's a release.
mm,
For them, it's confirmation, it's a validation. No, there's a baby that's waiting for you. We
mm,
just have to clear this energy. We have to clear this limiting belief. We have to shift and adjust your career. It's usually like these tweaks
yeah,
that we're making that they're like, yeah, I know that I should be doing this, but I haven't been doing it. Or they're the fear.
mm,
So if you feel overwhelmed, stuck, afraid, blocked, that is a good indication of, getting support because we don't have to do it alone. And these, you know, these readings have been life-changing for me
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
I was when I was going through my spiritual awakening, but also every time I have a client and I have a reading, I'm just so grateful because it really helps. It's really, really worth investing
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
yourself because it's life-changing. Like
Yeah.
it will change the course of your life once you have that permission, once you have that healing, once you overcome the fear.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. How do you apply all of this, as I'm sure you do, but I don't know how. How how do you apply this to now your parenting with your kids? And what does that look like? What is the through line there?
You know what? It's it's so funny because doing this work, like I'm not out here reading everyone's energy all day. Like I'm not.
Mhm.
I It's kind of like I turn it off and on. Like I'm really intentional about it because it can be overwhelming, you
Yeah.
know? For my kids specifically, I do seek outside support. I do seek outside help. So I seek other intuitives, other readers, especially if I'm going through. So my daughter is 3. She's going to
Okay.
be turning 4 in June. And my son is 1. He's like 1.5.
Okay.
And for them, it's just taking the time
Mm.
to slow down and be really present and tune into them. Why is my daughter acting this way? Why is she, um, you know, really emotional today? Like, what's going on?
Mhm.
And just intuitively, like, speaking to her, like, are you feeling this way? Because I think this work has taught me more than anything that there's an underlying cause.
Mm.
So when our children are quote unquote being bad, it's really a reaction to something else. There's an underlying cause to why she's acting out, to why she's, you know, hiding or being temperamental or not eating.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's not that our children, are just don't want to listen to us or be disobedient, but it's because, they're on their own journey too and things are happening to them every
Yeah.
day. And so this work has really allowed me to be more present, to say like, you know what, energetically something's off here.
Mhm.
So what could that thing be?
Okay. 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 Forgive my ignorance. Spirit baby.
Mhm.
Does a spirit baby essentially become your actual baby, or do you, and then like if you were going to have more than one, do you have multiple spirit babies? Like how does that work? Or what's the belief behind that?
Yes. So there is a book called Spirit Babies because I love to give credit where credit is due. There's a book called Spirit Babies by Walter McKitchen, a hypnotherapist, a psychic medium. And, so just for anyone who wants to learn more, and read into that, spirit babies are souls. So
Okay.
they are in the spirit realm and they're basically souls who are waiting to incarnate.
Mm.
And we can connect to the souls of the baby and ask them, what are you waiting for? What does mom and dad need to do?
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
what's up?
That's
Like,
really
we can
sweet
have
to think
a
about. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
we can have a
really sweet.
conversation with them, and they're old souls, because they've been through past lives before,
Mhm.
they know what they're doing. So when we're talking to them in the spirit realm, they'll be very matter of fact, like, look, it's just not aligning. Like her job isn't the job that we agreed to. It's usually like this alignment, that is not happening.
Interesting.
And um, so when I see a spirit baby, so when someone comes to me for a spirit baby reading, I call on the energy of the woman and then
Mhm.
I'll look in her aura, in her energy. Is there a baby like circling her? Is there a baby in her energetic field?
Mm.
And often I will see, like an orb of it'll usually appear pink or blue based
Mhm.
on the gender, and it'll
Mhm.
be like if they're close, it'll kind of be like orbiting them, or if they're kind of far, it'll be like long ways, like the orbit.
Okay.
Um, and sometimes I'll even see them off in the distance.
Mm.
I will say we do have free will. So I've had clients who are like, and me personally, I have a spirit baby who's in my energy. And I'm like, 2 is a lot right now. Like 2 is a handful, so let's
Yeah.
renegotiate a little bit. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
about, but we do have free will.
Okay.
So if you feel like, you know what? No, I'm done, then that's cool. Like there's also no judgment. There's nothing. There's so many different like factors and levels of this, like
Mm.
miscarriage.
Mm.
It is I do not like or want to bypass the human experience because miscarriage is hard. Miscarriage is one of the most emotionally, mentally exhausting and draining things, especially
Mhm.
for a woman who's been trying and hoping and praying to conceive.
Mhm.
More often than not, it is the spirit baby coming to you to tell you conception is possible. I am here, but also things need to change.
Mm.
So sometimes it's what emotions were you feeling around the miscarriage? Were you relieved? Were you like devastated? And did that validate or confirm, yes, I want to have this baby?
Mm.
Usually it's about commitment and intention. Like, are you committed to bringing this baby? And usually it'll be like a kick in the butt, like, oh, I need to eat better. I need to do my vitamins. I need to get this done. Usually miscarriage is a sign of something needing to shift or to happen in order for them to come along.
Okay. Okay.
And so, yeah, we can talk to spirit babies. We can ask them about what mom needs to do, how can she support you? And they'll tell us things about health, physical wellness. They'll tell us about sometimes it's even location. Sometimes it's dad needs to do something. So we can have conversations with them and we can, find out what is the underlying cause or it's never a problem because everything is usually in divine alignment or in divine timing, but it just gives the mom a sense of comfort and relief and in
Insight.
knowing,
Yeah.
yeah, like, okay, this is happening. All I have to do is this, and then, moving along the
Okay.
process.
Okay. Okay. So I have limited time left with you, and I want to make sure we talk about your community.
Mm,
Tell me a little bit about Om Mamas
yeah.
and what you do there.
Yes. So, Om Mamas is a free community. And we have workshops. It's also really just a space to connect. So over the past year, I've really realized like, it's a village of like women you didn't know you needed. It's like
Hmm.
I didn't know I needed to know about spirit babies. It's kind of like the stuff that we don't talk about,
Yeah.
right? Let's talk about grief and motherhood. It's kind of like, and I don't even want to call it like taboo,
Mm.
but it is. It's the stuff that I didn't even know that I needed this.
Okay.
I didn't even know that this was a thing. And it's spiritual tools, but it's also maternal health and spiritual wellness.
Okay.
Like as a mother, how can I use these tools to make it easier for me? Because it will make it easier. The mindfulness, the connection, the practice will make motherhood easier.
Hmm. Okay. And what is the format or the structure of it? You join and what next?
Yeah. So you join the community and Um, it's completely free and you could ask questions.
Okay.
We host like workshops periodically.
Okay.
So we're
You said
getting our
that. Sorry.
schedule of
Yeah.
workshops for the rest of the year.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just a completely free, accessible tool. I designed it consciously that way because whoever feels called to join it, I feel like should have access to the information and the work.
Okay. Okay. All right. Christine, is there anything based on our conversation today that is still kind of lingering on your heart, mind, or soul that you want to make sure to say today? Make sure to leave people with, or anything I didn't think to
Um,
ask you?
the biggest message that's coming through right now is to use your voice.
Mm,
Don't be afraid to do things differently.
yeah.
Don't feel afraid because I think motherhood sometimes can leave us in this box of I
Mhm.
have to do it a certain way and you don't. There's so many different ways that you can do it and go find those ways.
Yeah. Simple but not easy, right?
Simple but not easy.
Yeah. Okay. And lastly, because I can't help myself, Is there anything about me that is coming through for you that you want that is worth sharing or noting?
Whew, let's
I'm
see.
putting you on the spot.
Yes, you're putting me on the spot. And I'm not gonna go too deep because, I don't know what you want your audience to know or not, but this is a really big point of expansion for you. And I think that message of trust that was coming up earlier is really resonant in this season actually, because it feels like you are being called to pivot almost. Like pivot is the word that they're showing me, and it's like this transition that you might not necessarily feel comfortable with, but it's necessary and it's needed. And you just have to trust that this is going to be the best thing, not only for you, but for your family.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It, yeah, it hits. Not that I didn't expect it to. I've not. I've gotten a few readings before. Some were more impactful than others, I will
Yeah.
say, and I think that um some of it was just like we said earlier, just the place that I was in. Like, was I ready
Mhm.
to receive
Yeah.
the information? So it's complex, but I think, like you said, it can be so life changing just to have some insight and some acknowledgement for the path you're on. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. Well, Kristine, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated getting to know you and learning more about your work. And I will
Thank
link
you.
all of the ways to follow you and get in touch with you in the show notes. So, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. What did you think? I love this stuff. I cannot wait to explore this on my own a little bit further. I also think now I need to have more guests on the show to kind of get into all of this spirit guides and spirit babies and ancestral healing and all of the things I want to know more. If you have more questions for Kristine, make sure you sign up to chat with us live on July 31st. Visit sasssays.com/panel. And of course, check back in on Friday for my detailed thoughts on this conversation. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.